Okay, good morning everybody. We're gonna make top A of Butterick 5792. Okay, so there's a couple things that we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to make tucks. We're going to have to gather. We will need some bias tape. And I think that's it. So I'll show you how to do the tucks. And they're pretty easy. With the tucks, if it's on this side, you know, you want them facing that way. This side, you want them facing that way. So we'll get started. First, I want to thank everybody who's been watching the videos. The comments are awesome. Thank you so much. Really warms my heart. It really does. And I hope I've helped a few of you out there. And, you know, all I can say is thank you very much. And, you know, we'll get started. So the first piece you need is your front. Now, as everybody knows, I use the heat pins, so I have to go and make my marks. But tucks are real easy to do. Let me get a pin. Okay, on the pattern, and I have to mark this on both sides, you see these little dots. Let me get over it right here. There we go. You see these little dots. Boom, boom, boom. This is one tuck. This is another tuck. And this is another tuck. What you're going to do is bring these two small circles together. So just say I had one here and one here. You'll just bring those two little circles together. And then sew down to the last dot. You don't want to go past the last dot. So you should have 3 of them. So let me get these marked. And I was going to say, don't be scared to play around with the patterns. You know, like last night I put the tie on. You know, you can play around with your patterns and just make it a little bit different. You know, just experiment. You can always pull it out if you don't like it. But that's the fun of sewing, is experimenting. And that way you just have something a little bit different than what somebody else has been making or doing. So, I'll sit here some nights and I'll just play around with my patterns and, you know, see what I can come up with that's different. So like I said, don't be scared to play around with them. Okay, so see, once you mark these, I have to mark my other side. But, I had a pin there. Okay. All right, so you would open it up. Here's my first dot, and here's the next dot. And you just match these dots, all three of them. And then on this side, you would just sew down. But be sure, like on this side, my dart, or not my darts, my tucks, I want going this way. And then on this side, I want them going that way. Okay. Let me get these other ones marked, and then we'll start sewing. And I'm sorry, you're probably going to hear my birds today. It's Sunday, and I don't know, for some reason they go off on the weekend. Especially the little one. He is very vocal. All right, let me get these all marked up, and then I'll be back and we'll start sewing. I'm not going to put my safety pin in on my front because I know this is the front because we will have the tucks. So you have 3 dots. You have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So just fold these dots till they match up. And pin them. So there's my first dot. Oops, I just dropped that pin. Okay. Then usually I will just put a pin where this dot is, and then match the next dot, go through, pull my pin through. Down a little. There we go. And then pin it. And like I said, just be sure that it's gonna go this way. So then once you pin again, see, everything is going to your left. Oh, everything's going to your left. And then when you come over here, you want everything going to your right. So just line up your dots and get them sewn up, and then I'll be back. I'll show you how I do one when I get these all pinned up, and then you can go ahead and do the other ones. Okay, so where you're gonna sew is where your small dots are. So right in here. Let's see, 1, 2. Yeah. So just where your small dots are, that's your line of where you're gonna sew. Now, if you feel comfortable or more comfortable, where your dots are, you can always draw a sewing line. So all you would do is from dot to dot, And you don't want to go past this small dot, but reinforce it after. Where did I put my pin? Okay, so here's my dot. So that's where you're going to stop. So if you feel better drawing a line so you have a sewing line, you can do that. Okay, so all you're gonna do, be sure this is straight. You don't want any buckles in it. And always start with your needle down and just follow your line. And when you hit the end, I just go back a couple stitches. And then when we get done with these, we will iron them. Okay, once you have the one side done, come to your ironing board and all your tucks are going to go outwards. And just press them. And then I got to do my other side. Okay, and that's what you'll have. So that's what you'll have. They're all facing this way. Okay, let me get this side done. Okay, I have to go get my charger. My phone is running really low here. I didn't charge it last night. So I'll be right back and I'll finish my other side. Okay, once you get your other side, be sure these are going the other way and press them down. And then we have to baste along here. And what that's going to do is when we put the neck ruffle and all that, it's going to keep these going the way they should be going. So just get a needle and thread. And baste that up. And like I said, don't throw away like little spools of thread. You can use them for basting. Okay, let me get this basted up. Basting, you only have to use a single strand. You don't need to double it. So just get these so they are facing the right way. And then just tack them down. There's some basting in this, but it's worth it. I hate basting, but sometimes it's just better to just baste it than just to not baste it. All right, and then just leave a little tail. Okay, and this is what you'll have right here. And there's your tucks. Okay, with right sides together, oh, it's my iron making that noise. With right sides together, you're gonna pin and sew your shoulder seams and your side seams. So match your notches. Yeah, the birds are going crazy this morning. So match these notches. The African gray keeps asking you if you're okay this morning. He's so funny. Okay, so do this on both sides. So your shoulder and your side, it's going to be a 5/8. Be sure you have your raw edges even. Okay, and then just sew these up and I'll be right back. Okay, I have one more side to do. A subscriber asked why don't I sew more of the sewing than explaining. When you watch a video and you're listening to somebody else's sewing machine, it really starts to get to your head. I don't know how to explain it, but that's why I kind of explain more. I mean, if it's gathering and stuff, I usually show, you know, how to sew it on. But if it's just a regular straight stitch, you know, I don't want other subscribers to have to sit there and just constantly listen to but I will do one side with the sewing. So there's the shoulder. This is 5/8. And then do your side. And like I said, to me, that is enough noise. Like I said, if it's something besides a straight stitch, I'll show you. But to sit there and just keep sewing a straight stitch, everybody knows how to do that. And I try to explain it better than sewing it and hearing the noise. Okay, so just open up your seams here. We're watching the hurricane channel, weather channel. I don't think we're gonna get it, but my husband has to keep it on to be sure. Okay, so our next step, I think, is our neckline. Hold on. Okay, it is going to be gathering the neck ruffle. Okay, before we do that, I'm going to grab myself another cup of coffee. at this time, go to the video, the special video, put your name in or type me in the comments. And tomorrow we pick, I think it's tomorrow, we pick a winner for the free pattern. So go ahead and do that while I'm getting coffee. Also another subscriber, I think I explained this before, why I don't do an intro. I just can't stand watching the same intro over and over and over again on somebody's channel. I always try to skip through it. We watch a lot of, you know, like makeovers of mobile homes and, you know, just dumpster diving, all that stuff. And I just can't stand watching the same thing over and over for like 45 seconds. That's to give them either recognition, you know, so you remember them, or, you know, just to put more time on their video. And I just can't do that. I'm here to show you, teach you, and, you know, answer your questions. I don't think you need to see my intro every single video I put through. I mean, maybe it would get me more subscribers because they would know, oh, you know, there's Abby, you know, sewing channel. But that doesn't matter to me. I'm just here, whoever has subscribed, to learn how to sew, you know, get through some of the problems that they have, and teaching them different things to do with sewing and switching your patterns around, you know, and just having fun. So, so there's that explanation once again for, I can't remember who it was that asked, but, you know, that doesn't matter. But it's just so tiring looking at the same thing over and over and over again. It's same like with the sewing. You know, if you can do a straight stitch, you don't need to see me and listening to my sewing machine for that 30 seconds. I mean, that's why I try to explain: sew down, you know, 5/8 seam allowance. It's a straight stitch. You don't need to hear this machine. It is awful when it comes through videos sometimes. It's so loud. And, you know, I'm just trying to use my time better than to go through every single stitch. So, with that, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. I need one. And, you know, just like my shirt said, I sew so I don't choke people. Save a life and send fabric. So I'm going to go get a cup of coffee and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, I'm back. I have my coffee. It is starting to storm. The thunder's coming, so I'll try to get what I can done before it starts to really go crazy, and then I gotta shut off my machine, and I'll finish this later tonight. But the next piece you need is number 3. This is the neck ruffle. And you're gonna sew these 2 ends together. You want your material right sides together. You hear that thunder rumbling. And that's a 5/8. So let me get this pinned up and sewn. And it has to be gathered after. So I will show you part of the butcher twine gathering that I do. Not all of it, but you know, just a few seconds so you get the idea. All right, so let me sew this up. And just open up these seams. I gotta sneeze. Okay, I'm back. We had a storm. I had to shut down. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to gather this whole neckline. So I'm using the butcher twine, and I'll show you a little bit of it. I'm not going to show you going all around. So what you do is you take your butcher twine. I am going a little above my seam line here. But get this like a 1/4 inch away from your raw edge. Be sure you go onto zigzag. I make a pretty big stitch. I make a 3.6. And just drop your foot. Have where the slit is in your foot. That's where you want your butcher twine. And just kind of hold up your butcher twine. Not real high, but, you know, just a little. And be sure that you're catching, you're going above the butcher twine when you go back and forth. You don't want to catch the butcher twine, but just keep going all the way around. Now be sure you're doing this on the notch side, not the straight side. Like I said, in the pattern, here's your notch, and you're gathering this side of it. All right, let me get this done, and then we have to put it on the neck. Okay, when you get done with that, be sure you put your sewing machine back to the straight stitch. You don't want to start stitching with a zigzag. Okay, so then we have a piece like this with the 2 ends. Now first they want us to hem the straight piece. So what you're gonna do is a 1/2 inch seam all the way around the straight edge. You're gonna go all the way around. Then we're gonna fold it at that seam line and then trim it as close as we can to that seam and then turn it over again. So, but first, just do your 1/2 inch seam line all the way around your neckline. Okay, going around something this long, I'm just gonna use my little magnetic guide, and you just put it down where you need your material to be, and then just keep going. After you get done with these, they're magnetic, so if you have a computerized machine, take it off because it's not good for them. Okay, when you get done with that, we're going to, where that seam is, that's where we're going to press. And these are just a magnetic seam guide. And I showed these once before. This gives you like your seam for your needle. your setting, and then you would just put this down near on the sewing machine, and you would get the right seam. Okay, so what you need to do, I was playing around and pulled this. I shouldn't have done that yet, but okay, this seam right here that you just did, let me get my light over here. You're gonna turn this down right where that seam is. You want that seam on top. And you're gonna press this down all the way around. Then when you get done with that, you're gonna trim this close to that seam, but don't cut into it. And then you would just turn this down again. So let me get this pressed and trimmed, and I'll be back. Okay, so once you have this part, you're going to trim close to this seam. Don't get your ruffle or your seam. So just take your time with it. And once you get that, you're just going to turn it under again, press, and sew it. So just try to keep a nice straight line without getting onto your stitch. I'm probably leaving maybe an 8. Okay, after you have this pressed, you're going to sew close to this folded edge. So get that done. Okay, then you're going to start ruffling this and match your notches in your center piece. So where that seam is, right here, that's your center. So that is right here. And then the back center is this seam. So then you would just pin this right here. And then just start working, gathering all the way around your neckline. In the front, there's a couple notches. So what this will end up looking like is this is going to be turned up. Like this. So the ruffles are going to be upwards. So it would be like that. And then we're going to put some bias tape down and sew that. And then I don't have the beaded eyelet, but I still have a bunch of this left. So then after we get that all done, this will go right here. And then you can cover that this part with ribbon. I have to see if I have any white or black ribbon. This is the only color kind of eyelet I have. I'll look and see if I have something different. But I know I have white lace. And that's too big of, yeah, that's too huge. I wouldn't have enough. Yeah, that's too huge. Okay, so we'll just go with the flow here with whatever we got. So just at your centers, just start gathering and pinning. And try to keep it as like an even gather right up to the edge and start pinning. Just get that pinned. And that's why I said pin your front center, pin your back center, and in the front pin your notches. And that way you know how much you need to play around with this. So let me get this done. And I'll look and see if I have any other type of eyelet lace, or it's supposed to be like a beaded type lace and then you put the ribbon through. I don't have that. I know I don't. But anyway, so when you get this done, this is what it'll look like. Oh, let me get this straight. Like that. So when you have it on, the ruffle is upwards. So like I said, just keep playing around with it, you know, tightening it and you know, just try to get it as an even ruffle as you can. And I'm pretty sure we baste this, yes. And once we get this on, we baste it. Okay, let me get this working. I gotta go let out my dog for a minute. His little girlfriend is outside. The neighbor has a dog the same age, and she's a female, and they're like boyfriend and girlfriend. Okay, so I'll get that done, and then I'll be back. Now that you have this all pinned up like this, you have to baste it. Now baste it close to up here. And when you're basting, you know, if you have like a big chunk, you know, just kind of pull it out and, you know, try to get this to look nice and even. So that's what this is going to look like. But see, this is going to be up when we're done. And then we have to put bias tape down here. And then it'll hook onto here to cover up this raw edge, if that makes sense. So just get your needle and thread. And be sure when you're basting this that you have your tucks going the right way. You know, you want them going that way and that way. So just be sure you have that and your seams are opened, and you know, just sew away. See, like I just used up this spool. There wasn't much left on it, but you know, I could use it for something. So don't throw away those spools that only have a little bit on them. Use them up. Okay, so let me get this basted. If I can get my needle threaded tonight. I do have one of those things for it, but there. So this is just a single strand. So just baste this up. Like I said, you know, you can move it around a little to try to get it to be a more even gathering if you have to. So I'll meet you back when I get... Okay, once you have this all basted, you're gonna sew it on. And what I usually do, even though it's basted, I'll sit there and pull this a little, not hard, but just to be sure that this part, the inside, is even, that there's no bunches in it. Okay, so we're gonna sew this. It doesn't say, but it should be 5/8 because it doesn't state a different size. So it's usually 5/8 unless they state different. So sew this 5/8 all the way around, and I'll meet you back. Now be sure you put your hand under here to be sure that that's flat when you're sewing on the ruffle. So you want to be sure that shirt part's flat. So just check it. Okay, and you can pull out your basting thread if it'll come out. It should. I get the right side here. I might have caught it, but it'll come out. Just work at it. It'll probably snap, but there it goes. There's one snap. There we go. All right. Now what you're gonna do is trim all along where this seam line is that we just did, because that's where we're gonna stitch the bias tape. So you want to get all this gathering clumpiness out of there. Just don't hit your shirt. And then we'll come back and we'll press this, and then we'll start putting on the bias tape. So just don't get your shirt. Be real careful. So I usually start where it's pretty flat so I can see my seam line, and go about, I don't know, a 1/4 inch from that seam line, and then just snip away. Okay, and I'll be back. Okay, when you get that done, just inspect the shirt to be sure that you didn't, you know, cut into your seam. And then press this seam my iron, because we're gonna sew the bias tape right on this stitch. So I'm just gonna like just push up my ruffles. Gotta let my iron heat up, just so they're kind of like out of the way while we do this next step. Scissors. So get that done. Just kind of bring them upwards. Okay, now grab some single fold bias tape. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go grab a cup of coffee. And then we'll do this. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open one end of the bias tape. It says press lightly. You want to still see that crease. So I suppose so it just kind of stays open some. I'm just gonna unravel mine, and I don't know how much I'll need, so I'll just unravel it. So press this one edge open. And then we're gonna pin this to the neckline. And I'm hoping that we're gonna be kind of like stitching in the ditch on the other side. So you're pinning this right to that stitch line that we just made. That's probably enough. Okay, let me get over here, get my light over here. So you want to start in the back because you're going to have to hook this together, and you don't want that in the front. This is my middle front. Oh, I should have done it the other way. Get over this way. Okay. So pin this right at that seam line. And just leave a little because we're going to have to do our end. So find that seam line. And pin this all around. See, and when we come back and sew this part down, that bias tape is going to pull your ruffle to stay up. So just get to that seam line. Pin this all the way around. Then you're going to sew in this crease, and then you're going to trim again to the bias tape. All right, let me get this going. Just be sure you have everything nice and straight. Notice the camera wasn't angled right. So on with this flat piece, you're going to pin this right at that seam line, right at the beginning of it. Okay, then you're going to sew on this crease. I'll show you how to do the ending. But then you're going to sew it, and then you're going to trim all this to the bias tape. So you're even going to get a little bit more of this bulkiness away. So just be sure you get it at that seam. Okay, let me get around. Ooh. That would have been a nice little mistake. Be sure everything's nice and flat. Okay, to finish your end, just turn this where you started. Turn that over and bring this to the end of that. And then you're going to cut it. I got my other scissors over here. Okay. So just be sure this is even. So then once we turn this, we will be stay stitching or slip stitching this closed. Okay, and then just cut this off. Okay. Now sew up around this crease right here, all the way around. Just take your time so you're not going off, or be sure everything is straight on the back side here. You want everything nice and straight. No buckling. So that looks good. Okay, start about 1.5 inches, 2 inches away from the end. And that way you don't have a problem with this flipping up and all that stuff. So just go along this line slowly and I'll meet you back. So just be sure you keep checking to be sure this is nice and flat, and then just follow this crease line. All the way around. Okay, then get your scissors and just trim the material right in here. You want it just even with the bias tape. It's not going to be sewing in the ditch. It's going to be coming down a little bit lower. And that is where the lace would be to cover it up. Now, I just don't have any. I've looked. I mean, I got a box full of stuff, but I just don't have anything that's gonna, I don't know, I might be able to use this. Maybe I can use that. We'll see. But let's get this part finished first. Okay, so just trim all this away, and then we're going to bring this down, tack it, and then we'll put the lace on. I don't know if that's going to be kind of big for this, but oh well, we'll see. Okay. So just trim it right to the bias tape. Don't cut your shirt or your top. So just go around like this. Just get all of that off. Okay, now you're going to iron this down. So you're just going to push this down and press it and pin it. And just try to keep everything straight. I'm dropping my pins. Just keep everything straight and keep these ruffles upwards. Okay, then when we get done, we're gonna sew right on the edge of this. And see, that's where your lace would go to cover up that stitch. So just keep going around. Press and pin. Hey everybody, I put that lace down. And I hope it doesn't look too bulky, but it kind of has the flowers like the material does. So what I did is where that seam is right here, all I did was just put the top of my trim right on that, so it covers that sew line, and then I just sewed this on. So this is what we have so far. We have the sleeves and the hem. But this is what it look like. Now the sleeves are just like the neck. Okay, so be sure you have your marks. There's a dot here. You have a couple squares, which those will be the underarm. Okay, but first we have to be sure this is the unnotched side, and you're going to sew that 1/2 inch all the way down, and then we'll fold it and then trim it and then fold it again and sew it. So that would be the armhole. And then I'll do the first armhole, and then I'll do the second one off camera, so that way it's cut some of the length of the video for you guys. And if you did put your trim on and use a different color thread, be sure you switch your thread back to the color that you're using. Okay, so the unnotched. Okay, so sew up a 1/2 inch seam all the way down your unnotched. So it's a 1/2 inch. And do both of those. Okay, then where you stitched, you want to have that stitch right on top and press it. Try to get it the best you can. I'm sorry, this is a longer video. There's just more stuff to do, and to try to explain it for a beginner sewer, I have to go through all the points here. And I'll try to get this done tonight. My eyes are really starting to get tired. But I'll see how far I can get. Okay, right at that seam. And keep pressing these down. Okay, then what you're going to do is trim real close to this stitch line. I go probably about 1/8. Just don't hit that stitch line. And then you're going to turn this just like we did for the neckline. And then pin it in place and stitch it. So just keep trimming. Okay, everybody, I'm going to make a short part 3. My eyes are just getting really tired. All we have left is the armholes and the hem, so it won't be a long video. But you all have a good night tomorrow. Don't forget, I pick a winner for a free pattern. And please like, share, subscribe, comment, thumbs up. And I will see you tomorrow morning.